The driver up ahead suddenly started acting strange. He lost control and rushed down the slope on the right. Then the next second, he launched straight into the air, flying over a pedestrian and 4 lanes of traffic. Turns out, the car he was driving was a $0 purchase. And not only was this driver already out on bail, he had also skipped court. So there were multiple warrants out for his arrest. Yet somehow, he still chose to go $0 shopping while on bail. His whole strategy was pure surprise attack, leaving the cops completely caught off guard. But then again, if he did not find a way to quickly pay back that borrowed $5,000 bail money, the consequences might have been even worse. And the car he was driving today had some serious power too. His ride was a Chevrolet Malibu, a car with a 2.0-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder engine, making 250 horsepower, and going from 0 to 60 in just 6.2 seconds. At this point, the driver must have been even more nervous. If he got caught again, losing his freedom would be the least of his problems. Who knows how much that $5,000 he borrowed would turn into by the time he got out again. Thinking about that, the driver decided to go all in. He acted like lane markings no longer existed, and drove straight into the opposite lanes, trying to use innocent drivers to force the cops to back off. But he did not expect the officer to be so experienced. The cop simply followed from a distance, and never got too close. No matter what the driver tried, the officer kept a safe distance, so the driver could only floor it. After a long back-and-forth chase, he led the cops onto the highway. By then, both sides were already moving at around 125 miles per hour. Even though the driver was giving it everything he had, he still could not break free from the officer. So let us check the power ranking, and see if this driver has any hidden skills left. When the officer saw the driver heading toward an exit ramp, he thought the driver had finally come to his senses, and was ready to give up. But the driver's next move was absolutely legendary. If there was no ramp, he decided to create one himself. That jump over the pedestrian's head perfectly recreated a scene straight out of a movie. After witnessing the whole thing, the officer quickly started reporting it to his teammates. Guys, you might not believe this, but I just saw the driver pull off a full-on flying special move. That leap of faith carried him across 4 lanes, plus 1 pedestrian, and the center guardrail. I am not exaggerating. That move looked like he crossed through layers of reality, and entered another dimension. In an instant, he left the officer several streets behind. Let us switch to the pedestrian's point of view. It was a Saturday. A man was taking his 2 daughters out camping, getting ready for a nice weekend together. Because they had left early, they were not in a hurry, but he had no idea that this slow speed had just saved them from disaster. When they reached this curve, a car suddenly came flying through the air from the right, but the landing next second was not nearly as clean. Looks like the driver only learned half the technique. He knew how to take off, but had no idea how to land. When the officer finally drove around and caught up, he discovered the driver was actually running away on foot. What kind of body is this? Is he a Super Saiyan? The driver used his ultimate move and failed the landing. Yet somehow, he still managed to run nearly 800 meters. Even the officer, in perfect condition, had to run for quite a while before barely catching up. Now facing 3 officers closing in from different directions, the driver still refused to surrender. His adrenaline was maxed out. He had no strength left to resist the taser. Young people really do have strong bodies. He dropped and went straight to sleep. Although this showdown ended with the driver getting arrested. Now let us look at another hilarious driver. At this moment, the open-top driver was swerving left and right, but as he kept twisting more and more, one of the rear wheels finally gave up, and left home first to gain its own freedom. But what completely shocked the 2 officers was that even after this happened, the driver still did not panic. It all started when a patrol officer spotted something strange on the highway. Come on, bro. Just because this thing is called an all-terrain vehicle, does not mean you can take it anywhere you want. The angry officer immediately turned on the siren and chased after him. Other drivers quickly pulled over to make way. Do not underestimate this officer just because she is a woman. As a sergeant, Madam's driving skills were naturally solid, and with the siren helping her out, even in heavy traffic, she had no trouble overtaking cars one after another. But a siren is still a double-edged sword. Regular drivers hear it and move aside, but once the suspect hears it, he speeds up early. They had already been chasing for a full minute, and still had no idea where the driver was. Luckily, the split was on a downhill section, with a wide view up ahead. Just as Madam was about to take the wrong route, the driver's flashy silhouette, and his rough, lonely stubble, immediately caught her eye. At that moment, this driver was the brightest star on the highway. The target was locked, so Madam immediately sped up. In Arkansas, this kind of vehicle can only be used in designated areas. It cannot be driven on public roads, let alone treated like the highway belongs to him. Now that they had finally gotten close, facing the warning siren behind him, the driver only turned back and gave a quiet glance, then immediately went full speed. The vehicle was doing about 110 kilometers per hour, which was probably its absolute top speed. But Madam did not dare get any closer, because this driver kept throwing items behind him. And just as she said that, a water bottle flew straight toward the windshield. What? How dare he attack an officer? The backup officer behind her immediately lost patience. The driver probably did not expect that Madam had brought a bodyguard with her.
Driver, pull over! Driver, pull over!
I thought she brought a bodyguard. Turns out she brought security. If shouting commands actually worked, why would anyone need a pit maneuver? But the driver barely cared. After all, Arkansas does not allow pit maneuvers on motorcycles. Once he got off the highway and slipped into the woods, the sky would be wide, and the bird would be free. Seeing that his items were almost used up, the driver raised his middle finger and launched a magical attack. That move instantly made both officers start discussing a plan. The driver had no protective gear at all, and the department had a rule against using pit maneuvers on motorcycles, so even as a sergeant, Madam had to strictly follow the policy. Looks like they could only box him in from front and back. Let us check the power ranking. Well, this 4-star driver had quite a few unique skills. At this moment, the driver passed 2 highway exits, without taking either one, so the officers immediately made their move. Jeb hit the gas, trying to get ahead and slow him down from the front. Just as the road narrowed, he nearly collided with the driver. The two drove side by side up front, secretly battling for position. His hat suddenly flew off. Was that another item from his inventory? While the driver was distracted, the officer seized the chance, moved ahead of him, and slowed him down. The driver refused to accept it, and immediately started swaying left and right, showing off his skills. The driver was about to make his next move, when something unexpected happened. His left rear wheel actually left home, and went off to find its own future. The scene in front of them was nothing like what the officers had imagined. Although the driver had thrown away his final item, which was his tire, it did not seem to stop him from moving forward. Not only that, after he got used to it, his speed actually started going up again. Looking at the driver's strange setup, I could not help but think of that old man who raced around in a wheelchair. The officers never imagined that a driver in this condition could still keep speeding down the road. Madam hesitated for a long time beside him, and still did not dare get too close. Who knew if he would throw out another tire next? But she was also worried that he would not last much longer like this. Madam prepared to take action and force his speed down a little. After all, if the driver crashed in this condition, he would probably be covered in bruises. He even suddenly turned the wheel without warning and moved ahead to block the road. Seeing that the driver had opened up the lane on the right, the officer immediately seized the chance and accelerated. The driver had no way to defend both sides, and on this stretch of highway, there were no exits at all, so he could only keep moving left and right, defending by pure instinct. Looking at this situation, he probably could not hold on much longer. Madam seized the chance to overtake. The Dodge Charger let out a roar, ready to force the driver into a dead end. Seeing the driver slow down, the officer immediately moved in and applied pressure. In the end, the driver still failed to make it to a repair shop to change his tire. Looking at 2 Dodge Chargers boxing him in from front and back, and the dark pistols right in front of him, even though the driver was completely drunk, he clearly knew what a gun was, so he let the officers press him against the hood. After the officer questioned him, the driver admitted he had been drinking quite a bit. The water bottle he threw earlier was actually being used to hold alcohol. As for everything else, he claimed he did not know anything. Judging from how he was dressed, he looked more like an old homeless man who got drunk and confused, found a vehicle, and drove it onto the highway. Although the driver eventually lost his last bit of freedom, his 3 special skills were definitely unforgettable. But judging by how things work in Arkansas, this old man might be released in a couple of days.